here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm really excited today to be a part of a collaboration. It's been a while since I've been a part of one. And this is the Women of Faith collaboration. There's been a few of them out. And this is arranged by Darlene over at Super at 60, and she invited me to be a part. So thank you, Darlene, for the invitation. Now, I encourage everyone that's watching this video to go check out the other channels, including Darlene's, that are a part of this collaboration. And I'll be linking to all of their channels in the description box down below. So don't forget to click on either show more right down here below my channel name if you are on a computer, or that little gray triangle over here on this side if you are on a smart device, to open the description box to find all the links and any other information I'll be putting in there. So the theme is Smells Like Church Supper. And I've been wanting to do a video on a fruit crisp for a while that wasn't part of a this and that video, and I came up with a new idea even, so this is going to be fun. Now this is something that's going to be perfect to take to a potluck or over to a friend's house, or just to help someone in need who maybe they're, maybe somebody was in the hospital, they couldn't, and they just need help with meals, or just had a baby, or whatever it is. So this makes a good sized dish that's easy to whip up and can easily be made gluten-free for those who need that to take to your church potluck or whatever situation you need it for. So let's get started on this. So one of the other things I'm excited about is to show you yet again how you can use your dehydrated apples from previous years, no matter how old they are, to make a really great dessert. So what I have here, these apples are from 2015, and I need to finally work through them. And since these ones didn't dry up as crisp as the ones I did in 2016, they're just a little bit more pliable. These ones are perfect for cooking up and using in pies, turnovers, and more, and in crisps like I'm going to do today. So what I have right here, you're going to say, why are those so dark? Well, I'm going to explain it to you. So I have 2 quart jars of the dehydrated apples here that I cooked in cherry juice, so 32 ounces of cherry juice. So I just dumped the jars of the dried apples into this pot, and then I poured the cherry juice over the top, and then just cooked it for a while until they're mostly tender. They're not entirely cooked, but they're going to cook the rest of the way in the pan. So first what I want to do is add just some kind of thickening agent to it, just to make sure it thickens up well. And if you're wanting to make this gluten-free, super easy. There's many options you can use. You can use buckwheat flour, brown rice flour, white rice flour, or any of your starches like arrowroot, kudzu, tapioca, potato starch, any of those. And you're going to need about 1/4 cup in your mixture. Since I do have my gluten-free flour out, I'll go ahead and use the buckwheat, which is one of my favorite gluten-free flours, and add that in there, and then just mix it really well. Now if you would like, you can add 1/4 cup or so of sugar to this, but since I cooked these in a nice sweet juice, I'm not going to add any sugar to this particular blend. I did let this cool a little bit before adding the flour, by the way. So just mix that in well, and then dump it into your pan. There's going to be a lot of liquid in there. That's okay. That thickening agent's going to help, plus your topping that you're going to put on it. Okay, and let's get that spread out evenly there. So one thing I really like about using apples for things like this, whether it be pies or fried pies or crisps, is that you can cook them in any juice you want, or even just apple juice to intensify their flavor, which the flavor's already intensified in the apples when you dehydrate them and then cook them up, even if you just use water. But cooking them in juice will just add even more flavor, which is so great. And in this case, I do love using cherry juice. So what you end up with is a cherry apple flavored whatever that it is that you're making. So now I have my bowl ready for the topping. Now, though I often make this when we go over to our friend's house they're all gluten-free, I'll use all gluten-free items in this, but since I'm just making this for our own family and none of us are gluten-free, I'm going to be using barley flour in this, and this is just freshly milled organic barley that I get the barley from Azure Standard, the barley grains. And so I'm going to add a nice heaping cup, a little bit more of that. As you can see, I do not use precise measurements when I make up recipes. I just throw together whatever I think sounds or looks good. Now, usually what I do is I'll use buckwheat flour for the topping, and then maybe brown rice flour in the fruit mixture to thicken it up. But again, any of your favorite, if you're gluten-free, whatever your favorite gluten-free flour is, just like I mentioned for the mixture, it can be the same thing for the topping. Though I don't recommend going with the starches for the topping, but sticking more with like a buckwheat flour or one of your rice flours for that. And then for those who can handle oats, I really like adding oats. I know not all gluten-free people can do the oats, and I know some of it will depend on whether or not they're steel cut and so on. But our friends can handle the oats like this, and I really like having rolled oats in there. So a nice heaping cup, and let's just throw in a tad more of the rolled oats. You don't have to use that much. You can just use a level cup of your oats or your flours when you're doing this. Let's go ahead and mix those together real well. Well, maybe not real well, because I got to do more mixing. So I'm going to put in a couple pinches of salt just to help bring out the flavor, or one big pinch, that is. Don't like to put too much, but having a good salt, especially a healthy salt like your red mineral, your Himalayan salt, those are some great options because of the mineral content in them. And to the topping is where most of the sugar is going to go. And obviously this is going to be up to you what type of sugar you use or how much. I usually put about a cup, or if I'm using mostly coconut sugar, I might increase that, because coconut sugar is it's a lot less sweet than your regular organic cane sugar. So usually if I'm using coconut sugar, I might increase the amount. I'm going to go ahead and go half and half on these sugars. So I'm using both the cane sugar and the coconut sugar. So I'm going to start with a half cup, a little better than a half cup of the coconut sugar. And again, a little better than a half cup of the organic, unbleached cane sugar to that. And then you'll want to mix that in fairly well, at least. We still have to cut in the butter, so it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it's a good idea to have your dry ingredients pretty well mixed before you cut your butter in. Now for this amount, since I have probably close to 2.5 cups of a topping in here, then I'm going to use 1.5 sticks of butter in this case. So if you're using just even 1 cup, so you could probably get away with a single stick of butter. So I got a half stick right there, and then another stick. This right here is the butter I get from Misfits Market, which is from the Vermont cultured butter, and I'm loving it. Actually, as much as I love Kerrygold, I'm liking this one better, surprisingly. And you'll want it room temperature at least, so it's easy to cut into your flours. So just take a big fork, or if you have a pastry cutter, those are good too. I've never bothered to buy one. I used to use one when I was a teenager because my mom had one, and that's when I started baking, was at a very young age. But then when I got out of the home and then got married, I just never bothered getting a pastry cutter. I find using forks, especially a big salad fork, works really well. Now, another option some people like to use too, if you don't have a pastry cutter, is just use 2 butter knives or 2 table knives and just cut it like that. But what I really like to do, once I get it cut up well enough and I can't do much more with the fork, is I just start using my clean hands and just start working the butter in like this. Yes, it's a little messier, but I find I do a better job at getting nice small pieces when I break it up, and I just keep working it like that. And once the pieces start getting smaller, then you can break them up even smaller by simply taking your hands and just rolling them like that. Your aim is to get them down to about pea-sized pieces with the butter. And while yes, you can use margarine, I just don't recommend it. We don't do margarine here. We only do real butter. But I'm sure if you're vegan, coconut oil would also be a good option to use in this. You would just want to know how many ounces, so you're going to use at least 4 ounces, which is equal to a stick of butter, or up to 6 ounces, which would be a stick and a half. Now, if you get to a point, oh gosh, well, as you can see, suddenly everything looks quite different. But you know what? This is good timing. What happened was, the reason I'm wearing a little bit different clothes and things out here look different is Right when I was finishing up working that butter into the flour and oats, I got a phone call from my daughter-in-law. And I've been on call for about 2 weeks waiting for this phone call because my son, he works outside of town 3 days a week, an hour away. And both the kids had asked me to be there when the baby was born, our grandson. So they knew to call me if Justin wasn't there, to call me so I could go get Marlene and take her down to the hospital. Well, that's exactly what happened in that point when I was shooting the first part of this video yesterday. So Patrick took care of covering things up and getting it in the fridge, and I ran over there and picked her up. And since this video is a part of a collaboration that is women of faith and us sharing our beliefs and how unashamed we are about our faith, I want to go ahead and share this story right here. And that is, obviously, I've been praying for her for some time. This was her first child, first time going through all this. And I was very concerned about her because I always kind of had the impression she had a low pain tolerance. So I've been praying and praying and praying. And when she called me yesterday, she was scared because Justin was an hour away from work, and she suddenly had a gush of blood come out, and she immediately went into labor. And so that actually scared me quite a bit too. It's like, what do you think about that? So on my way over there, I just kept praying and praying and praying. I picked her up, and we went to the hospital together, and come to find out, it was what I figured it possibly could be, was just her changing cervix. And so everything was fine, and the baby was fine, his heart rate was good, but her labor was only about a little over 5 hours. Everything went smoothly. She handled it like a champ. You would think she had had several babies before this one, and even the doctor and the nurse were very, very impressed and surprised about how everything went so smoothly and so quickly and how she handled it. I just share that because I believe my prayers were answered, that everything would go smoothly for Marlene, that the baby would be healthy, there would be no complications. And it really did turn out that way. And Justin made it back in time to be there for most of the process, and of course for the delivery of his son, and he got to cut the cord. So it was truly a blessing, and I thank God so much that he answered my prayers and that everything went exactly the way I had hoped, and actually better. And because I am totally unashamed of my faith, I wanted to share that story to go along with this video and this collaboration. So now let's get back to this recipe. So when I was finishing up this, which is, I just pulled it out of the refrigerator, so it's a little clumped together now, but I wanted to share that if you decide that maybe you have too much butter in there, it's just a little too much, you can always add more flour, more oats, whatever. And if it's the other way around, you decide you need a little bit more butter, it doesn't quite have the right feel, add a little bit more butter as is needed. And then all you have to do is then, I'm going to have to crumble this a little bit because it is cold. You just got to sprinkle it over your fruit, whatever fruit you use. Now remember, you can use berries, you can use whatever you want. I did do this in that video a while back where I kind of did a quick run through on making a gluten-free berry crisp where they were all from my own garden that I had frozen up. Strawberries, blueberries, currants, just same idea. Whatever fruit you want to put in there. But one of the reasons I chose the apple was so that you could also see this is just one way you can use up your dehydrated apples. Make sure before you even start all this that you preheat your oven to 375. And so you're going to put it in the oven and let it bake for, I would say let it bake for a half an hour and then check it. Typically it's going to need close to 45 minutes at that temperature, but I always say check at a half an hour because all our ovens, even though we can set them at the same exact temperature, they can still vary a little bit, and plus how brown you want it on top may also change, but it's going to need at least a good half hour for everything to cook so that the liquid in the fruit can cook and set properly. So at least a half an hour, but yeah, typically 45 minutes or even longer if you feel that it needs it. So I'm going to get this in the oven pretty soon, and I'm not going to wait for that process and come back to this video. So what I'll do is put some photos here of the finished product so you can see what it looks like. And really, that's it. It's very simple. It's one of the reasons I like doing this. Not only can it very easily be made gluten-free, it's something that you can pretty quickly throw together. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and please don't forget to check out the other channel's videos that I'll be linking to in the description box down below. Thanks again to Darlene for inviting me to be a part of this collaboration, and to all the ladies that are involved. And to all of you watching, thanks for taking the time to watch and listen to my little spiel about my faith, and may God bless you all richly.